John Lilly once put it this way: there are no limits at all to the human mind whatsoever, except those we impose on ourselves because of our beliefs. And those limits are also beliefs to be transcended. And that's a view that suggests that the possibilities of human transformation are virtually infinite. And we have no way of knowing the outer horizon of what it means to be human.
And really, to understand all this, everything, you have to go very, very deep into a study of history, consciousness, neurophysiology, everything. You have to be the supreme eclectic type of leaning, and you really have to be wanting to know who you are and what everything's about.
And the thing that you'll find when you go to sacred sites, if you're very humble about it, is that you are on a personal journey, and the sacred site will respond to you in a way that is appropriate only to you. The information is always what you are searching for. And it's the intent you give that energy that defines whether it is used for right action or not. And it is inside these sacred spaces that you will be reminded that you are a god, that you are a bright star.
So what you're trying to do is move through the course without ricocheting off walls or creating karma. You're trying to slide through things smoothly. How do you do that? It's called flowing. There's a technique that you can do that will allow you to touch some part of your inner being that has more knowledge than your conscious state does.
Lord Thomas Hamilton.
Ah. Are you the liaison sent by the Admiralty?
I am, my lord.
They say it started with a man named Henry Avery. Sailed into the port of Nassau, bribed the colonial governor to look past his sins, encamped his crew upon the beach, and thus began the pirate issue on New Providence Island. Where and when will it all end? I suppose that's where you and I come into the story. As I'm sure you're aware, my father, the Earl, holds great sway amongst his peers in Whitehall. He has asked for the assistance of Her Majesty's Navy in pacifying the island to which he holds title. He was assured that this request would be considered a matter of the utmost importance.
Undoubtedly, my lord.
And perhaps you can tell me why they decided to send you.
Beg pardon, my lord.
A number of your superiors are former schoolmates of mine. I canvassed them about your reputation. The son of a carpenter, no record of any formal schooling, and yet more literate than any 3 boys I knew at Eton. You are a rising star with a bright future in the Admiralty. You can understand my concern.
Not really. Perhaps my lack of education is showing.
I intend to accomplish something here, Lieutenant. I intend to save Nassau before she's lost forever, and I cannot do that with a partner who might be more concerned about advancing his career than he is about realizing this goal.
You want to save Nassau, my lord?
Very much so.
Then perhaps my job is to make certain you know what you're getting into.
What is this exercise intended to prove, Lieutenant?
You want to understand why piracy flourishes in the West Indies? I'm about to show you. Have you seen one of these before?
I'm afraid I haven't, no. Who is it?
Davy, someone or other. High seas piracy, treason, so on and so forth. Same as the last, same as the next. Being asked if he wants to confess. beg forgiveness in the eyes of God and Queen Anne.
I assume that was a no. So, this is the lesson. The pirates of New Providence Island are incorrigible, dedicated to mayhem. To attempt to address this subject is doomed to defeat from the outset.
Not him I wanted you to see.
Then, civilization needs its monsters.
You think Whitehall wants piracy to flourish in the Bahamas?
No, I don't think they want it, but I think they're aware of the costs associated with trying to fight it. And I think that that sound travels. You're an educated man, my lord, but I think it worth reminding you that in most cases, a man trying to change the world fails for one simple and unavoidable reason. Everyone else.
Good morning, young priests. Where do you journey?
To the marketplace to buy food for our temple.
Ah, I am glad to see that priests have money for food in these trying times. But I have heard reports that there are bandits on the main road today. It would be much wiser if you take the side road at the foot of the hill.
Thank you, venerable sir. We will heed your advice. They took our money, our cart, our clothes, everything we had of value.
Except that which is irreplaceable, your lives. How did you come to leave the main road?
Because we were fools. We trusted a stranger.
He was an old man, with a kind face and a gentle manner.
Bring them close. Hopong, what lesson have you learned from this?
Never trust a stranger.
Kwai Chang, what lesson have you learned from this?
To expect the unexpected.
Hopong, in the morning when you are well and rested, you will leave the temple.
When shall I return, Master Khan?
To us, never. You are troubled about your friend Hopong?
I do not understand why he was told to leave and not I, when I was equally responsible for trusting the old man.
We do not punish for trust. If while building a house, a carpenter strikes a nail, it proves faulty by bending, does the carpenter lose faith in all nails and stop building his house?
Then we are required to trust, even if we are often reminded of the existence of evil.
Deal with evil through strength, but affirm the good in man through trust. In this way, we are prepared for evil, but we encourage good.
And is good our great reward for trusting?
In striving for an ideal, we do not seek rewards. Yet trust does sometimes bring with it a great reward, even greater than good.
What is greater than good?
Love.
My very special guest today is Dr. Wayne Dyer. Dr. Dyer began his career as an author in the early 1970s, traveling the country and selling his first book, Your Erroneous Zones, from the trunk of his car. That book went on to sell more than 30 million copies and became the best-selling book of the 1970s. Despite a childhood spent in orphanages and foster homes, he has overcome many obstacles to make his dreams come true. Today, he spends much of his time showing others how to do the same. As an internationally renowned author and speaker in the field of self-development, Dr. Dyer has written more than 30 books, 18 of which have been national bestsellers. Several of his books have been featured as PBS specials, raising over $150 million for national public television. So you say that if we change our thinking, we can change our lives. And I'd like to know when and where you learned this.
Oh boy, this goes way back. I grew up in a series of foster homes and orphanages when I was a little boy, and I learned right then and there. I used to call myself the richest kid in the orphanage, because most of the people in there, all of the kids that were in there, thought of themselves as poor. Right. That you can't have money because, and they would complain about things. I can remember in the home that we lived in Mount Clemens, Michigan, there was a lady brought her daughter there. Now, I wasn't there because I had been abandoned or anything. I was there because my father had walked out on his family, and my mother had to place us in there. I reunited with my mother 10 years later, and I'm still united with her. She's almost 94 years old, really? And I love her very dearly. Oh. But in those days, there was no welfare, and there was nobody to help other than the churches or people who just volunteered. So we were placed in a series of homes. But I remember whenever a new kid would come in, and they were usually there for the same reasons. You know, my mother had no money. She was making $17 a week, working as a candy girl at Kresge's on the east side of Detroit. So, with 3 children, and my father had just walked out. He was an alcoholic and just a bad dude. So I can remember this lady bringing in a little girl. Her name was Martha. And I remember they would always say when there was a new kid, she was crying, she was upset because her mother held her there and she had to leave her there and so on. And I can remember saying to her, "This is a great place. You're going to love this place. There's no parents here. You know, you're going to have a wonderful time here." And so I was always the one that someone would call and say, just see Wayne, because he always has a positive attitude. And my attitude always was, this is what we've got, this is what we have. And when I would look around and see all of the other people not having any money, I was the one who said, I found out that soda pop bottles were worth 2 cents. And for me, 2 cents, that was just amazing. So I would just follow people around who were drinking a soda pop. So you almost through with that, and I'll take it off your hands. And
so you always saw the opportunity.
And I always knew that it was just the way you think. I can remember our teacher that year, her name was Mrs. Poole, and I can remember her yelling at the class and saying, "This is the worst class that I've ever had. I can't do this class." And I remember being out on the playground, and the little kids all upset, and especially many of the girls were crying. We were in her worst class. And I just said, if this is her worst class, she's got an easy life. It was like, just change it. You don't have to believe what she says. Change the way you think, and you can decide to be happy right now.
And you were how old at this time?
I was 7,
wow.
6, 7 years old.
You knew that this.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's something that I've always known, that we become what we think about. And if you change the way you think about things, you change the world that you live in.
(1876). Day unknown. Month unknown. I continue to live among these unusual people. I am their captive, and then I cannot escape. Mostly I'm treated with a kind of a mild neglect, as if I were a stray dog or an unwelcome guest. Everyone is polite. Everyone smiles and bows. But beneath their courtesy, I detect a deep reservoir of feeling.
Higgin.
They are an intriguing people. From the moment they wake, they devote themselves to the perfection of whatever they pursue. I have never seen such discipline. I am surprised to learn that the word samurai means to serve, and that Katsumoto believes his rebellion to be in the service of the emperor.
Hey guys, welcome. It's Andre Hodge, Infinite Potential Healing with you once more. I hope this finds you well. I want to thank you for allowing me to be a part of your journey in this pretty epic, gnarly, crazy, hard to find time of someone offering stuff like this. So if you're new, welcome. I know there's quite a few new people that have found me and had interactions of late, which has been pretty cool. That are really raw and not that across me, so it's interesting. And but also all you guys that have been around for a while and maybe have disappeared and returned and found me to be a match to your journey, I want to thank you, and I really appreciate you allowing me to be a part of your journey. And I know how precious our time is and how demanding life is and the low life force that most people have. So attention spans are low and all sorts of stuff. And if you've dogs arcing up behind me. I also started and sat down and the crickets are having a rave around me. There was no noise and all of a sudden all the noise kicks in. So the crickets are having a rave again. Time's moving on. It's mid to late April already, so 2023. So yeah, I hope this finds you well, and I apologize for not doing videos. I've been pretty chilled, and I actually tried to do some the previous weekend on this theme, which was interesting, and I thought I nailed it pretty well. And I break the videos up doing the way I do, and just before I was about to finish, like winding up and saying goodbye, the second part, my phone crashed, and it was interesting. It didn't even save it. Like I'm a bit of a keyboard ninja from my IT engineer days back in before I went through my journey and stuff, and my recording stuff didn't even save the file, which was interesting. So I was looking to redo it, and I was reviewing the other half that I did and stuff, and the way I operate is I just let it rip and be my truth, and if it's not perfect, then so be it. I like to do these things of mind mastery in the moment and see how I go and see what comes up and be really in the flow, because sometimes a lot of variables kick into place when I'm actually doing it, and it's better than what I ever thought. So I like that rawness, and I'm not aiming for perfection. I love being the best I can, and if it's not as good as what I think, then I'll take it on board and integrate it and look to raise my bar next time and stuff. So I was content with it, and I knew it would have been good, and I would always release it, sort of thing, if I did it. But it gave me a bit more time to ponder and process it a lot more, and what I'm really wanting to offer here. So this video, getting to the purpose, is going to be Emotional Mastery Part 6, and it may go into more depending how long I go and what I offer in this stream. And then I might say miss parts or have more awareness to expand upon, or maybe it's already going to be enough for you guys and it's a good building block to expand more deeply, because I'm going to integrate a lot of concepts here that I think in this moment, in this time, and how the world is, self-mastery is going to be like an absolute sort of must, alright? So there's all shit going to go on in the world and stuff, all sorts of escalation of craziness, which seems to be the constant. You know, change is a constant. Things are never always the same. There's always movement and change and stuff, but there's a lot of variables at play, and so there's a lot of uncertainty. So the uncertainty may trigger, you know, the unknown and the emotional states of people and stuff like that, which I'll get into a bit later. And so this video, part 6, and if it goes on, it may be part 7, 8, whatever, but this emotional mastery part 6, okay, is going to be how your emotional state can affect your perception mechanics, right? How your emotional state can affect your perception mechanics. And it's, I guess, I can't say how you perceive me or what I've offered and stuff, but I'm all about, I guess, infinite potential, right? And infinite potential is, I see everyone has the potential to grow, expand, improve, develop, cultivate, reveal truth, perceptions, talents, and all that. My attitude is the human body is absolutely incredible, but there's just so much being done that we have no comprehension of, and there's a full reverse matrix upside down sort of thing of saying things that are good for us, we're being educated that they're wrong, sort of thing. So we actually co-create the derailment by trusting variables out there, such as medical and false light teachers, the false light billionaires. And so the key is, if you've explored the emotional mastery, I haven't done one for about a year. The last one I did was passion, which was, I hope you gained a lot from it. But the very first one was feeling as prayer, and I haven't reviewed those videos, they're just out there, but I know the purpose of the feeling was prayer was that me coming across a Greg Braden lecture called The Divine Matrix, which he did in 2007, and it's like a 5-hour lecture. It used to be on YouTube, but it's not there anymore. And in that, I guess the way I was for a very long time, I was in download phase, and I call download phases when you come to new, you know, you go through awakening and you get triggered and activated, and you go through the full Yoda unlearning what you've learnt, and you have to go get the correct data, or data as a foundation to launch from, right? So I might show you the consciousness Tetris image quick. So I haven't shown that for a while, but say we go through life and we have no concept of what's right or wrong, and we hear stuff and we believe it, sort of thing, and we might take on board data that's not an ally to our betterment, sort of thing. So say if you trust, say, medical sort of stuff, and you integrate it, then it might have a consequence, but you can't believe it is the cause, sort of thing. And that's one thing I guess a lot of us have witnessed, and it's pretty horrific, sort of thing, alright? But so we go through this download phase where we might go on the hunt and the search for truth, and we get very primal on truth. I certainly did, and I also went through, as I said in the past, my currency trading where I lost a lot of money trusting the narrative, and then I realized the narrative is a lot of bullshit. So getting back to the feelingless prayer is that lecture I was sitting on for a couple of years, and it was really interesting because I was like relentless. I had 2 lists of people like Greg Braden, Bruce Lipton, and I'll be showing some Bruce Lipton clips a bit later, and because I reviewed one of his awesome lectures that was a bit of my roots sort of back in that day sort of thing that meant a lot for me, and I've offered a Bruce Lipton video, a couple of them in the past on my channel, but the thing about this Greg Braden lecture was really fascinating for me because I'm relentless. If I used to find something, I'd just devour it and I'd study it and I'd take notes and screenshots and all that sort of stuff, but I couldn't go near it for a couple of years, and then I went through this, as I said, a real lack of money sort of era where I was living on $10 a day, and I was having to walk a lot of kilometers to save some money just to say buy a barbecue chicken or something like that. So I'd save the money from not getting public transport and walking, and then I had to get very efficient in life force, and so I realized like every emotion has a cost to it, whether it's positive or negative. Not only that, from a nutritional point of view, if you don't have the resources in your body, the body can sort of seize up. So if you imagine, this might be a bit complicated for some of you, but if you don't put oil in a car or gas and stuff, the engine stops. Or if you don't have oil in the engine, it seizes up, like it gets too hot and the metal melts together, so it destroys the engine. So yeah, the bodies are like a vehicle, right? If you don't give it the nourishment it needs, you get nutritionally suffocated and you can emotionally seize up. So my appreciation for most of humanity is I've got enormous compassion, okay? I'm not like a teacher, and I've seen teachers get pissed off with frickin' humanity for where they're at, okay? And they're sort of, they can let humanity have it for their frustration and where they're at and all that sort of stuff. And I've done advanced manifestation shows, so if you're seeing the wrong in stuff and like you're hating on humanity, then you're actually co-creating that exact outcome that you don't want, right? If you lack the emotional mastery, because most people don't really get manifestation sort of technology, okay? And so my attitude is I'm so fascinated and appreciative of all the variables that are going on in humanity, like I've said about life force, and I'm going to do a life force show that will be really outstanding, and it will really help a lot of people to measure that. If I just show you an image I've shown you many times. This is the 12D and below, sort of gatekeepers and teachers out there and stuff, and so this is the battle that's going on with humanity now, alright? And it has been for a long time. So this wasn't the image I meant to show, but I just thought I'd reintroduce it, because if I'm sort of seeing people hate on the people for them struggling through this, then they're actually contributing to it in my perspective. So I've got compassion for humanity because I get this battle, and we've never been told this stuff, and all the teachers out there for the most part have never offered anything close to being an ally to us, to showing us this context, alright? So if I move on, this is the image I meant to show. So my compassion is for humanity. If they're not educated right, they don't have the resources in the body, they're never taught, emotions are something you can master and be an ally to, and you're not a passenger to. And then all the falsehood and the multi-dimensional frackery going on to derail us, and they're all milked by all the bullshit anyway. And then to me, to hate on the people going through all this, it's more so my attitude is I find it incredible the people that have made it through, right? And it's been a battle, and so we might all feel inadequate and lack of resources and no one around and no peers or allies and stuff, but I would say pat yourself on the back for just making this point, but let's take it to the next level, Alright, let's see where we can go. And as I did in the last video, I talked about how we established the 12D grid and it's encrypted and stuff. So that was towards the end of recalibration part 5. So if you guys have explored that, I hope you gained a lot from that. That was, from my perspective, it was a great honor to be a part of, and the person that I did it with is, shout out to them. And it was a bit undercover and a lot of frackery going on and derailment and stuff. And so what I'm wanting to get to in this video is about how your emotional state can affect your perception mechanics, and what I've been observing. One variable that's gone on is that I've noticed that I think people, like say if you've gotten through that and you got to this and you're in a infinite potential sort of mode where you've gotten your spark to see that there is potential in you, and you're starting to take yourself to the next level. You're taking responsibility for your journey, appreciating your body, doing healing and stuff like that. I've got mosquitoes flying around. And yeah, you've at least got past the barriers and you're seeing potential for more. And so what I'm appreciating is there's a potential gap out there, even with the allies I know and stuff, where your emotional state can corrupt your perception mechanics, right? And when I say corrupt, it can be polluted, it can be corrupted, influenced, and you know, there's theory and there's practice. Or say, this might not make a lot of sense to you guys, but say I did currency trading, and it was very different from actually watching, say, the money system and all that and making a move in your mind, to actually putting money in the game, like literally skin, energy, life force. Money is an encapsulation of life force technology. That's the way I see it. So you're actually risking something. So there's a real investment into that. And so to say real world scenarios with variables and uncertainty and all those challenges and fears and engaging the unknown, when there's huge uncertainty in the world, I'm appreciating that there's a very interesting mechanics in the perception mechanics of people. So I'll just show an image quick. This is getting to the end, and then I'll get back. What I'm going to do is go basics and offer some concepts and build upon them. And so I'll just show you this mechanic image quick. So if I back up, this is a discernment mechanics image that I've shown you many times. So the green is in the trust, circle of trust. The black is the variables that considering and measuring against the whole, and then the stuff in the red is the discernment that you don't trust, sort of thing. Alright, so say if we just appreciate that, alright, and we all have a certain algorithm and mechanics, okay, but just imagine if your emotions are a variable that you don't even have control on. How do you think your mechanics go? Alright? So if I just move on to this next image that is a bit of an expansion on that, it breaks it down a bit. So this is a new one, and this is what I was getting about how your emotional state can affect your perception mechanics. And emotions are something we can actually control. So what I'm inviting is, it might be a really good time to start re-examining and observing your emotional state, okay? Because I felt like dealing with people and stuff in sessions and interactions and stuff, I'm pretty how I am, and I can appreciate what's going on in the body and where people sort of get a variable from. So say if I've been dealing with a teacher in the past, sort of thing that I know, and you know, an individual might have discerned them and stuff, and they don't trust a lot, and there's nothing wrong with all data, alright? You may be polarized about someone, but you don't include a variable in your algorithm, because it's all black and white, alright, with particular teachers and stuff like that. So a lot of people, they they're looking for the wrong in the right, okay? So they might block potential variables when they should include it, because from a simplistic and energetic investment perspective, just, you got to, I appreciate that the majority of people out there are very deficient in life force, so they're looking for the most efficient mechanics that they possibly can. So say this one in the middle is like they're very energetically deficient, so they don't have the ability to expand the capacity of the volume that they discern with at any moment, okay? So if they don't have the life force, then they're very limited, and so they might not allow good variables like the green, okay, when they should, which would help them see a broader picture of what's going on. And so they might have a teacher that they dismiss, alright? And you might have a discernment with the red, and you might not include some variables, alright, that you probably should, that are relevant, but because you've got a polarity against a certain individual, it's data that you're bringing in that could corrupt your ability to perceive. The top one, what I'm sort of offering, if you've read it and stuff, is that the fear state is fascinating, and I'm going to get into the body mechanics, alright? So say a lot of this document, this release will include the two states, fear and love. So there's a love state and a fear state, and I'll be showing some clips relative to them and the effect on their body. So if you go into fear, right, fight or flight, and your emotions are triggered, okay, or you're a passenger to the adrenals being triggered, and then your body tech kicks in, and you're put in a heightened state that has a very high energetic cost for a while. So what can happen is your actually ability to process variables at any one time is increased for that duration of your adrenals, to help you get out of a tough situation. But what I'm offering is perhaps the discernment variables. You lose the ability to discern because the numerous data points that you're including into your algorithm, you don't have the capacity to deal with. Plus you're polarized by your emotional state, so it's corrupting and it's polluting your perception mechanics, and then you might go down a wrong path, sort of thing, right? So I'm just going to show you another image. So this is like a navigation path, alright? So we have all these sort of variables at play, good, bad, and neutral sort of thing, alright? So we've got infinite sort of paths, if we just want to be that, use that language, on offer before us in all angles, alright? So what do you think will happen if you get polarized by an emotional state in your body that you're a passenger to, alright, and you're in fear, okay? It might be the instigator that takes you down a path that isn't the best for you, alright? And so if you appreciate the unknown sort of thing and being triggered in fear, you might go very conservative and not wish to explore the unknown. You might go to familiar, or even be a match to the negative path, alright? And see that circle, it could be an influence that gets into your energy field because you're in fear state, okay? So if you're able to master your emotions and stuff, maybe there's negative pathways that are before you, you're able to block the influence trying to get in to hack you, to make you go down the wrong path. And so you resonate in your body tech and your gut instincts and all that sort of stuff, because you're in a mastery state, you're uncorrupted, and you're not polluted by anything and influences and stuff, because you can sense your body and you can sense all the subtleties trying to hack your field, and that's how I work. Just because it's the unknown doesn't mean you have to go into fear. You might be miswired for potential to being fear, and that's what I was getting into the feeling is prayer video, because what I worked out in that very malnourished, I'm going to just use the words malnourished because I had to be very efficient I had to budget my actual emotions, because I realized every emotion has a life force cost. So if I was living on 1.5 meals a day and walking that distance, then I realized I couldn't really control the outside environment, but I control my emotional state, alright? And if I measured my body, because it was such a extreme set of circumstances, I was able to really get through all the layers of all the bullshit of me and get to the core of me and what I learned, getting to the point. And I really highly recommend going and visiting that video because it might be very potent for you, is that I worked out my feelings were wired incorrectly. So my default mode, I was actually thinking fear is something to gravitate to, and the unknown was fear, alright? And what I rewired was the unknown was the potential. I know the known sort of thing, and the familiar doesn't necessarily have the answer. But so what I was saying about the compassion about humanity and stuff is that I appreciate all this. And say the other thing, alright, to have the will to change a familiar path that has a negative outcome to going down an unfamiliar road, there's an actual quite a huge investment in energy to actually change that mechanics, alright? So again, it's not about beating up humanity, it's understanding and appreciating them and invite them to see what is on the other side. And I would say if I'm using snuffleupagus language, like very complex supercalifragilistic language, and people don't get me, I'm not going to frickin' beat you up, alright? I was, my actual skill in IT, alright? It was, I worked with some really epic geeks, alright? Epic. And they just didn't have the patience or the interest to actually develop the skill set to be able to translate the complex to make it simple for people to understand, alright? It's actually a massive skill. And I mean, I offer complex linguistics, and it can be very challenging for someone that isn't used to hearing every word sort of thing that has meaning. And if you don't know the meaning of every word, then it can be very demanding. And it, as I said, there's a real battle for the volume of life force in people, and most people are deficient. They don't have the energy. And then if you gain a concept that is unfamiliar and you integrate it and it shifts your whole reality, then there's an investment of that change and having to integrate and see the world differently. And people just don't have the energy budget in them. It's a masterful system, and it is complex and stuff. And I'm tough and I'm harsh and I kick people's butts, but I also do it in an encouraging way. I invite them to see another way, and sometimes that bit of a shock helps, but I'm not here to beat people up because I just want to milk your money because I'm a false light billionaire, alright? And belittle you to make you think that you're less, or to help me make you think you're less than me so I can charge a lot, sort of thing, alright? I just offer that because it's I'm seeing a lot of linguistics and stuff out there that are getting a perception that people employ complex linguistics to make them to put the perceptions in your mind that you're not good enough for them, so they can charge a lot, or be a apex teacher and you be a follower, sort of thing. And I don't do that. My aim is I'm an IT geek lazy, alright? I want to sit on my ass and let you do all the work. So no, that's a joke. Like this emotional mastery part 6, how your emotional state can affect your perception mechanics. I think when people really hear this and you get the mechanics of certain emotional states, then if you really get that solid, it's a foundation to launch from. And so, yeah, this I've already been going 25 minutes, 30 minutes, but I feel this is an area that we can all improve on and integrate and measure ourselves and develop and cultivate to then actually get return on investment to make our life more efficient, so we can redeploy the life force that we gain from mastering our state to actually perceiving better, and then our higher functions come in, because I feel that, you know, the multi-dimensional sort of intuitive abilities come with like basically 60 or 70% life force to build upon. Little fella, interesting. So yeah, I'm going to get into this. I've been talking a long time, so I'm going to get into some videos. So I don't know how long this will be. I might have to break it up because I've already been going half an hour, but I hope that is a good context, because I feel that each of us can improve our emotional mastery to have better perception mechanics. And so what I'm going to do is, over this whole, whether it's one or two, and break it up, give you some of the actual basic mechanics that we all have. So you can measure yourself and just see if you're actually corrupting and polluting your perceptions, because it's easy to go into with events that unfold in our lives when there's so much data, so much influence, you know, all the frequency sort of stuff going on, plus all the absence of appreciation of what our body needs and stuff. So we're actually in nutritional suffocation, and our bodies are seizing because that doesn't have the nourishment to actually have the experience on an emotional level, let alone to pull it back and prevent it going through. So we're actually, a lot of people don't even know that they're not mastering their emotions. They don't even know that where the source of that need to experience that emotion goes from. So if you appreciate every emotion has a life force cost, then if you can start mastering it, and it's not about suppressing, it's just really slowing everything down and asking yourself, why do I need to go through this? What's the point? What's the purpose? What's influencing me? How is that getting in, you know? And then, so it's definitely not suppression and not cutting yourself off. It's more of a Tai Chi, like, well, how am I allowing that to affect me? Alright? So, yeah, I hope this is a good intro, and it's encouraging to realize that, yeah, it's a good time to reflect, because the world is pretty fracked up, hey, and it's getting worse in certain areas. So I feel with the likelihood of an escalation of uncertainty, it's a time to invest in this to be solid for the change that's unfolding. So I guess I hope I'm inspiring you to realize that there's a lot of potential by recognizing the effect your emotional state can have into your perception mechanics. So don't feel bad about if you don't even realize that, but just see that maybe you got a potential you didn't even realize, and then it might be a huge ally at some really challenging points to really navigate those scenarios better than what you have in the past, or what you may do in those moments if you weren't aware of this stuff, right? So at this stage, I'd gone through a Bruce Lipton lecture. So yeah, my instincts for this was, I was appreciating that, say in sessions or people I'm interacting with, I could tell that they weren't on the ball, all right? Now, bringing variables in relative to their state, uncertainty, or influence is definitely there, right? But I feel if you get a handle on this mastery of the emotions and realize the effect and some of the mechanics here, the uncertainty of the external variables will be a bit more clearer, so then you can actually negate it with that foundation of the emotional mastery in place. And you may still navigate in a way that is your ally despite those influences, if that makes sense. It could be the thing that gets you over the line, sort of thing. So my attitude is, when you master what you can control, it makes the unknown a lot more easier. So this is sort of the intent, to help inspire you to have more courage when things unfold and what to do, because you'll be in a state with this appreciation as an ally to bring in to help navigate. Okay, so what I'm going to do is start basics, add some foundation of the body sort of mechanics of what goes on, so that then you can actually play and build on and see what goes on, because we're getting into the adrenals, the organs, the blood system, the parasympathetic, and all those sort of things. So if you're across me, then I had a lot of fun. Like I said, I've gone back to my old school roots sort of thing, and I was perceiving this and this variable, and how do I help people explain it, because say I was getting some perceptions of even the people around me and stuff, and they were teachers, because we can all improve on this. So I've got this Bruce Lipton video on my channel that I've had for a while, and it's got like 250,000 views and stuff, and it's a great teaching, but I realized in the perception mechanics, it's different to the body mechanics, right? So fear and love are basically the main two emotions, right? And I've got birds swimming in a drain up above me and it's splashing on me. Thank you. Thank you, bird crew. The cricket crew have chilled out now. They're not raving so much. I don't know if you know this, but the tunes that cricket put out are basically trying to call in a mate, so it's like a love song. It's pretty cool, right? So yeah, what I'll just do is I'll get into these two videos. One will be a Bruce Lipton one. It will be an entry sort of thing about the basically establishing the love and fear in the body reaction. So what he gets into is about associate fear with protection, like fight or flight, protection, and love with growth, because say from love it puts the blood in the viscera, like the organs, to help them nourish with all the nutrition. If you go into fight or flight, you're just like all your blood goes into your into your arms and legs to fight or run away, alright? But before that, I want to offer someone called Anthony DeMello. You may never heard of him. I did actually have this video on my channel, but they asked me to take it down. So hopefully in this lecture or this teaching, it gets through, because the censorship is pretty interesting. But if I can't get it on my, I'm getting splashed by birds. If I can't get it on my YouTube, I'll aim to include it in the BitChute channel release, because they're a bit easier with censorship. But Anthony DeMello is a pretty cool teacher who you might not have known because a lot of the videos got taken down. But so it was, if you understand my growth and my journey, I went through a love experience and got set up for failure and stuff, and I thought I was doing the right thing. But this clip was very potent for me because I was very technical on love and stuff, and it taught me that love isn't actually feeling love towards someone. Love is the actual state that your body is in, okay? And it's very nourishing. So I came across this 10-15 years ago when I was going across Bruce Lipton, and also this feeling as prayer era that I was talking about earlier. And so I'll just offer the clips, alright? So the first one is, the reason why I'm offering the Anthony DeMello is I could offer it at the end and keep it as a surprise and that, but I think it's very powerful to have it up front, to offer that there's a lot more to love that most people don't know. It's a state of existence which is very nourishing and energy efficient, alright? And then what I'll do is I'll offer you the first of what will be potentially 4 overall. Maybe I'll do more after I do this video, but maybe they're not all in this first release because I've been going for a while. And so yeah, I'll include that together. So I'll bring together the Anthony DeMello establishing the love state sort of thing, alright? And then I'll bring the basics with Bruce Lipton, and we'll build that up over time, alright? So what I'll do is I'll bid you adieu, and I'll see you on the other side of these clips. I hope you really get a lot from them. They're very, very cool. So see you guys. I'll be back in a sec.
Love is like listening to a symphony. Life is a symphony, and to love means to be sensitive to the whole of that symphony. It means to have a sensitive heart to everyone and to everything. Can you imagine someone who's listening to a symphony and only hears the drums? Or gives so much value to the drums that the other instruments are almost drowned out? A good musician who loves music will listen to every one of those instruments. He may have his favorite instrument. He may have his preferences, but he listens to them all. When you fall in love, when you have an infatuation, an attachment, an addiction, an obsession with a human being, you know what you're doing? that person stands out and the others are drowned out. Your heart is no longer sensitive. Love is not a relationship. Love is a state of being. Love exists before there's any human being around. Before you come around, love already exists. Namely, the sensitive heart exists always. You don't draw that heart. That heart is sensitive to you and responds accurately to you. But then to drown out the drums, that's just as bad because you're hardening your heart again. This is what love is, to listen to the whole of the symphony, to be sensitive to it all. I told you, when the eye is unobstructed, the result is sight. You cannot do anything to get love. If you would understand your desires, attachments, attractions, obsessions, addictions, and they would drop, love would emerge. When the eye is unobstructed, the result is sight. When the heart is unobstructed, the result is love. In my country, the poets and the mystics put it so beautifully. They say, is it possible for a rose to say, I will give my fragrance to good people and withhold it from bad people? The rose by its very nature cannot but love all. Is it possible for a lamp lit in the night to say, I will give my light to the good people in this room and withhold it from the bad? Is it possible for a tree to say, I will give my shade to the good people who sit under me, but withhold it from the bad? It cannot. And the poet Kabir will say, the tree will give its shade even to the man who is striking it down, and if it is a sweet-smelling tree, it will leave its scent on the axe. What merit is it to you of yours if you only greet those who greet you? And if you only love those who love you? You must be all loving, as your heavenly Father is all loving, for he makes his sun to shine on good and bad alike, and on saints and sinners alike.
Now the question is this. I have a cell, and I know the behavior of the cell is elicited by the receptors that read the signals. Here's this beautiful understanding, because this is what simplifies my understanding about how it all works, and then I applied it to my life, and it made such beautiful changes in my life. And it works like this. I used to clone human cells. And when I put them in the culture dishes, I'd observe their behavior and do things. And one of the things that's very interesting, if I put a cell in the culture dish when I started, and the cell is here, and I put food over here, when I start the experiment, I put the food over there and cells over here. When I come back a little later, where do you think the cell is? The cell moves toward the food, right? Okay. Experiment number 2. I put the cell over here at the start of the experiment, and I put toxin in over here. And I come back in a few minutes later, where's the cell going to be? Over here. Look, this is so beautiful, because here's the truth. At the level of the cells of which we are based, there's only 3 behaviors a cell can do, obvious behaviors that you can see. And here are the 3 behaviors. The cell can move toward a signal, the cell can move away from a signal, and the third one is actually a signal can be made in the environment, but the cell ignores it because it's not relevant. So there's actually 3 different movements: moving forwards, moving backwards, or not moving at all. Does that make sense? I mean, you can see it, right? So here's the issue. Then the behavior of the cell is actually divided into 2 kinds of behavior. When a signal is presented that the cell needs for its maintenance and its growth, the cell will always move toward the signal. When the cell is presented with a signal that threatens its life, then the cell will move away from the signal. So there's only 2 behaviors. What are they? Moving forward is growth, and moving backwards is protection. So the bottom line is this. Point. Now look at the logic, because this is the part that's like profound but simple. A cell moves forward for growth, moves backwards for protection. Can a cell move forwards and backwards at the same time? Yes or no? No. Point. Fundamental, profound nature of the point. The cells in your body are digital. When they receive signals that say growth, they will move toward things in growth. But if they're not receiving growth, then they will move backwards in protection. And the point about it is this: then the cells in your body are going back and forth between growth and protection based on what? The perception of the environment. But since the cells are in the community, they're also the perception of the brain. So as you're thinking, what are you doing to the cells? You're giving them information about their environment. If you think that, oh my God, I can't make it through this lecture because the damn projector broke. Oh my God, what do you think my cells are going? Oh Bruce, you know, they're hiding out. On the other hand, it's like, cool, we can make anything, we can do anything, we can survive. And what are the cells going to do? Well, they're not going to shirk backwards, they're going to move forwards in growth. Why is this relevant? Because the behavior is that clearly digitized, that it's one or the other. And the point is this: although you have 100,000 different gene programs minimum, I can take all the gene programs in your body and divide them into two groups. Those genes that provide for growth and reproduction. And let me explain what I mean by growth. Growth is not just from a baby to an adult. You are growing every day. Why? Because every day you're losing thousands, millions, trillions of cells a day. And if you don't replace those cells, what's going to happen to your body? You're going to experience disease and death. And so the bottom line is this: then for you to survive on a day-to-day basis, just to keep level, you're growing all the time. And that's a requirement of the system. So the fact is this: growth goes on and it keeps you healthy and alive. And then the issue is this: once you reach a certain age, then the genes, there are also genes for growth, but growth of the next generation. So the growth genes are for you or for the next generation. So those are growth genes, okay? On the other hand, growth, as I said, is only when the cells are moving forwards. But when cells are moving backwards, they exercise protection programs. So there's another set of genes in your body, or your cells, which are involved with your protection. But the point about it is this: a cell at any one time is either in growth or it's in protection, but it can't be in both. Now I got to ask you a simple question, and it's economics. Does it take energy to grow? Does it take energy to protect yourself? Well, then the point about it becomes very simple, because here's the point. When you find that you're in protection, you have to use energy. But the more protection you're in, the more energy you use. Well, where are you getting the energy from? You have a balance. You have like a checking account in your body of energy to run this body. And the more checks you write for protection, what happens to the balance? It gets less and less. And there's a point where so much protection is used that you actually now short growth processes. And this is true for like the nation right now. Right now, our budget has in excess of 50% of the U.S. budget is in protection. What does that mean? Well, all that money that's allocated for protection is not helping us grow or maintain the country in any way, because that's all put into armaments and whatever they are. And the issue is this applies to your own body. When you walk out on the street, when you wake up in the morning and you start to live, you're vacillating between growth and protection. And the issue about it is the more protection you require, or you perceive you require, and that's the trick, the one that says you think you need protection, the more you put into that, the less growth you start to accommodate. And here's an interesting part. You could be so afraid, you can be scared to death. And that's the truth. The truth is this: that fear can be so great that you absolutely shut off growth so quickly that you actually die right at that moment. And the reality is, understand the balance of your health is related to the amount of energy expenditure you're putting into protection. So the bottom line, survival is actually equal to growth divided by protection. And now look at this. Turn on the news, read the newspaper, listen to the TV. What do you hear every day? More reasons to protect yourself. Well, the air's not good, the water's not good, the food's not good, these people are unsafe. Every time you turn around, what are you doing? You're walling yourself off more and more. Why? Because growth means to go forwards. What is protection? Go backwards or wall off the outside. We start to isolate when we start to become fear-bound. And as we become fear-bound, we shut down growth as a natural biological mechanism.
Welcome back. I hope you're getting a lot from it. Very cool. Hey, maybe you've never heard of even that stuff, or that this is what goes on, right? But yeah, it's very interesting, and what I may not have shown it yet, and I don't think I've talked about it, but in the Passion video, thanks to Cliff Hire, he talks about Pavlov's, or someone related to that name, that worked out this emotional sort of appreciation of all the different emotional states and stuff like that. And what he did was he built the engine of his ability to process all the data out there based on emotional states of the words and the linguistics, and he used that wheel as a basis from that. But I might be showing this spiral thing over this, where there's basically two states, and that's what I was wanting to establish with this first clips, is that we basically have two states, three if you include the inaction, and I've done a multi-dimensional method to the 3D Madness video probably 2 years ago now, called the Trinity of Choice, where what I identified is, and it's interesting, when I watched this video and got these clips, I was like, wow, I didn't even put that together when I did that video, but it was obviously, I appreciate the concept, because back when I was currency trading, there's trade long, trade short, or inaction, and I use that Trinity of Choice as a metaphor of saying sometimes in life doing nothing is the best choice. Sometimes you don't have the right information to make a choice as well, so inaction is an actual choice, and most people think, what I was getting to in that video, a lot of people think that doing nothing isn't nothing, but doing nothing in many instances is doing something. So say if someone needs rescuing, you don't dive in the river to save them. Inaction is a choice because it has consequence. But if I just show you this, which I showed you before, say if you're messed up, you choose inaction until you get clear, then you might actually make a good path when you're clear, take a step back sort of thing, right? So it's interesting, hey, like, just have the variable of inaction as a component in your mechanics sometimes, right? Maybe you need to gain more data to find a way through and navigate, okay? So what I'm going to do is move ahead to the next video, alright? And the next video is a bit of an expansion from Bruce Lipton, and it's relative to those two states, alright? But seeing its effect on the body, and this includes what I was saying about the blood in the organs and stuff, or the fight or flight, alright? And then the protection versus growth. So fear is protection and love is growth state, alright? The state of love sort of thing. So what I'll do is I'll offer that clip and I'll get to the other side, alright? So enjoy.
But it's interesting. I have 50 trillion cells. Each cell can be in growth or protection, but my whole body doesn't have to be in growth and protection, so I can have a range. My body can be in, so many cells are in growth, so many in protection, so I can have a percent. So when I look at the human system, I also recognize that growth and protection is a variable, okay? And here's the interesting part about it. When I'm growing, which biological systems in my body am I using for growth? And the answer is all the organs in here called the viscera, the heart, the lungs, the digestive system, the liver and pancreas, and all these things. These are for growth. When I protect myself, which system do I use? Get out of here, I'll hit you with my lung. No, that's probably not what it is. Okay? The point is, when you're in protection, what physiological systems do you use for protection? Muscles and bones. And the interesting thing is, there's a switch in your body that switches from either the viscera or to the muscles and bones. Remember that thing we call fight or flight? Remember that adrenal system? The adrenal system is a master switch that switches between what? The two systems. The switch says, if I start to get into fight or flight, what am I going to use? Muscles and bones. Well, I shut down my viscera in the process. And that way, I have all my energy allocated to get ready to run. If I need to run away from a lion, I'm not going to start processing digestion at lunch. Why? Well, that energy might be the exact energy that it took me to get the last step so my foot doesn't get caught in a lion's mouth. So the system is intelligent. It says, when you're under threat, it will allocate the energy to where the threats are. It shuts off the visceral system. So the bottom line is simply this. In growth, the visceral system commands the somatic system. It works like this. In growth, I need water. So my body says I need water. Well, how do I get to the water? Oh, well, I move to the water. So how do I do that? Through my skeletal system. Well, who directs it? The viscera says I need water, so the skeletal system responds to the viscera's request. So the viscera administers to the need, the skeletal system administers to the viscera's need. Well, here's the interesting thing. My viscera says, Bruce, you need some water. So I say, okay, let's go get some water. So I start to go get some water, and right away, there's that lion right in front of me. And the fact is this, at the moment I see the lion, well, what do you think I'm going to do? Still go get the water? Nah. Really, at that point, my somatic system says, the hell with the water, we're running. So what's going to happen is I suppress the viscera when I activate the somatic system. And the point is, they're bound to each other. It's called the autonomic nervous system, sympathetic, parasympathetic for the words. But the fact is what? One pushes the blood into the skeletal system, and the other pushes the blood into the visceral system because the blood is nourishing it. So the bottom line is that humans are different than the individual cells because we have this graded effect. And here's the beautiful part about it. And you know this. Love is the maximum nourishment for growth. When you're in love, you will run to that place wherever it is. You have to go over the mountain or through the mountain. You will be attracted to it so much. Why? Because love provides a whole system, all the hormones and connections of the system to do what? Provide for your growth and your maintenance and your health. However, the moment you get in fear, then what do you have to do? You back away, you wall yourself off, you separate from the environment, and the consequence is this. Protection from the environment cuts you off from the environment. Cutting yourself off from the environment cuts you off from life.
Welcome back. I hope you gain more from that. It's very interesting, hey? So, he goes from a biological, more 3D 5 sense perspective, but if we take it to a multi-dimensional aspect, alright? So I'll just show you this, okay? This was just a quick image of a energy field in our parasympathetic and life force scale, alright? So imagine you're in a fear state, alright? And as he gets into the life force sort of cost of the fear state, it doesn't have it's not perpetual or infinite. It's got a certain tank in it, can exhaust. And my attitude is when you go into the fear state, you might get the expansion of short-term lived bonus, but then there's a long-term cost that you need to replenish. And so when we're talking about psychic stamina and stuff, you know, the system doesn't give a shit. It's working from a multi-degree. It's just waiting for you to grind down, and it might be the thing that's grinding you down to wear you down, to be the Trojan horse to get shit into you, right? So if we look at the energy field, it can be quite demanding to maintain your state, right? So just see the relationship between the love state and perhaps your psychic defense and the emotional cost that the fear state has, and then the effect on your energy field to make you vulnerable. And so these influences they're constant, right? If you've appreciated what I've said about all the influences and all that sort of stuff, all this shit is just waiting to get to you, you know? And then something might hack into you, and then, see, I've got the targets on the parasympathetic locations, and so it might get into your organs. So you might be grinded down and stuff, and then something might get into your energy field and then hack your parasympathetic and then get into your adrenals to keep you in the fear state, to keep this perpetual, and to keep your life force down. So you get grinded down and you lose your abilities. Whereas if you're able to maintain your emotional state, right, then the ability to endure all this stuff is increased, right? And so, as I was saying at the start, if you have the courage to really recognize this and invest in it, you're going to have more chance to endure a lot of stuff, and then you'll be able to recognize things and stuff like that. But I'm just inviting you to see that, the fear state has a potential to be a invitation to frackery that can get in and then mess you up and stuff, right? And then if I get to the perception mechanics, right? So say, if you get compromised, then it can compromise your perception mechanics, and then you go into that heightened state where you're able to process a lot more variables, but you have no discernment, and so then your navigation might be off, and you might go down the wrong path. You might gravitate to the wrong teacher, as I said in the Echoes Part 3 or 4 about the Babylon Massacre and the sympathetic resonance to the falsehood. Right? You may not have discernment. You may gravitate to the falsehood, and that corrupts your life, and then you go down the wrong path. Right? Whereas I haven't really talked about the bottom option, but say if you're in the love state, right, your ability to process more is absolute. Plus you've got the discernment to realize the variables that don't apply. Right? And as I said at the start, you're not black and white with teachers. You've got the ability to process each variable on its merits and not bring in the baggage relative to what you think about someone. It's just data, right? And this is about your acceleration and your development. And truth is like a needle in a haystack, and this might help you develop your truth detector, like a metal detector sort of thing. Right? So yeah, I'm jumping ahead, but I'm just inviting you to contemplate all these variables, because the emotional mastery is something that we can all take responsibility for in ourselves. Okay, it's something that is there. It's part of our body, amazing body tech. All right, but it's also very, just observe humanity and how many people actually have emotional mastery. Not many. All right, it's very seldom appreciated potential that everyone has. All right, so I might show you just an interesting clip, another image here. All right. So I sort of, this is, you imagine TV, all right? So I had this interesting interaction just recently. I realized, holy shit, all right? It's just, I got this mechanics because I've gone through this expansion and see a lot of stuff. Right? So say, I'll just get to the point really quick. So that, say the TV might show someone. So we'll go for this one up this, and we'll go across, and then we'll go the one at the bottom and across. So say there's someone on TV that's a positive person, but the potential is that the TV might actually be broadcasting a polarity frequency, and if people don't even have awareness that they can be influenced on their emotional state, let alone that something can be broadcast to actually compromise their state relative to someone, then a positive person might get a negative frequency emanating from the TV to influence people to have a negative perception about them. So they're reverse engineered, like that feeling is prayer, sort of upside down sort of stuff, right? So if you imagine, then people are actually very vulnerable to being hacked and stuff. So the stuff coming through can actually hack people to actually put stuff into them. And I'm just using TV as an example. It's not necessarily true, but this is just an example of how mechanics may work, right? So it's up to you to discern and appreciate. Because say you might be having conversations with people and it's hard to get through that this is going on because they're locked in and they're actually influenced, all right? And so you imagine if there's a negative person, it can be reversed, all right? So say politicians sort of thing. They're doing all this scumbaggery, but there's this positive frequency that's emanating from them that actually convinces in people's bodies that they are good, so they have a positive perception and they just can't be broken, okay? So the same thing, okay, it can be positively influenced to have a positive false perception about someone that's negative, okay? So I just witnessed all this, and I won't get into names, but it was just interesting, and it was like, you know, you get into those interactions that you just know are pointless, alright? So this is where I've got the compassion for humanity, because there's a lot of this stuff going on, but also, say we've got the 12D grid in, as I said, the spell has a huge potential to be broken, okay? But this isn't about, as Cliff High would say, normies. This is about our ability to navigate and appreciate the perceptions at play, the variables at play, to navigate and discern at a higher level. I hope that makes sense. So it's getting dark quick, so I might move along. So I want to get into the third clip from Bruce. And so this is getting, again, like I've been a bit overviewic and stuff, and I may miss variables that I wanted to speak about with these clips and stuff, but I think it'll be very rich no matter what and way I offer it, because this will be fascinating data to a lot of you to actually get that self-mastery going, to have a launch pad to get your infinite potential going, right? So this I think it gets into how stress can affect us, right? And stress is a very interesting variable that can have a life force cost on us and then impact our perceptions. But it's also a potential ally that I said it can actually expand our ability to process data. So like in the passion video that I said, if you've watched that, and the short of that was I was very passionate about DJing, so it was very inspiring and motivating for me to go out and say work at Burger King and make 1 million Whoppers to gain the funds to go and buy my passion, my records. There was no cost, it was just joy. And what I realized is I employed that passion state to learning these giant computer frickin' manuals that are just insomnia medicine, alright? That's what I call them. But if you appreciate that, why would I allow some data to make me go into a negative, like falling asleep state? I realize I can overlay the passion state to motivate me to master anything, no matter what it is. So as we grow up, we have interests, and we're inspired to be interested. Like say if I was into DJing and buying records and mixing, and it wasn't, I loved doing it. So there was a pureness and a nourishment from doing that. And what I learnt during that time is I could go from an average IT admin to being an engineer, like a senior systems engineer, consultant, going out into the GSF level of IT issues to go and fix them and be the last resort. It was my appreciation of the passion state that was a very heightened positive state. So if you get the love state and all that, it's all sort of related. So we can have absolute maxed out 100% or 150% motivation at all times if we want with anything. And so it's really, I just find it interesting that people struggle. Say if you struggle with the revocation and that, the infinite potential revocation, it's like, wow, this takes half an hour. Why is it so hard to spend half an hour on yourself for a massive positive potential in your life when you can probably go and watch 9 hours of Netflix without even thinking? I just find it fascinating that doing positive work on ourselves is so hard, but like wanting to Netflix and chill is just effortless, alright? So just see that as an aspect of passion and motivation and stuff. But I want to get into this Bruce Lipton clip, alright? And this gets into how the effect of things can affect our perception mechanics, alright? So I think this is going to be a very rich clip for you to see based on what I've sort of prefaced so far. So I'll see you on the other side, guys. Hopefully not too dark. Enjoy.
Now, you thought that was bad enough. We shut down the viscera so we can run and so we're not getting growth. And we shut down the immune system because at that point it's not helping us with an external threat. Let me add the last kicker to it. And here's the kicker that's real important. Think about it. In a fight or flight situation, do you think you would use neurological reasoning and conscious, like this, that? Or do you use reflex behavior? Which one? Reflex behavior. You know what? Reflex behavior is the hindbrain, and thinking and logic and reasoning are the forebrain. So here's what happens, and most of you have experienced it. It's called exam stress. And here's how it works. The moment the adrenaline levels and the glucocorticoid levels rise to get you into a fight-or-flight posture, remember I told you the blood vessels in the viscera are squeezed shut and forces the blood out to the periphery? The blood vessels in the forebrain get squeezed shut and only feed the blood to the hindbrain. When you're under stress, you lose intelligence. It's required because it's not a time to be thinking, it's a time to be responding. So the issue is, and if you've been in an exam stress, you know what that means. It's like you study like 3 days in a row, you got, oh, man, I'm going to get an A. I sit down, open up the exam book, look at the first question. I don't know the first question. You know what happens? You could feel your body begin to change right there. Adrenaline's running all over. You start to sit in the seat. You're starting to shake. Your muscles are ready to run. Why? To protect your life now. And then you're trying to think of the answer. And guess what? You cannot think of the answer to that question. You probably cannot think of the answer to the next question or the next question until you do what? Until you calm back down again. The reason is this. It's a protection mechanism that thinking is not helpful under a stressful situation. It will interfere with the response. So the bottom line is this. 3 things happen under stress, each one of them debilitating you at 3 different levels. Level 1, your viscera shuts down, your growth and maintenance mechanisms are reduced. Number 2, your immune system is shut down or inhibited to conserve energy, which then allows opportunistic organisms free run of the playground. Number 3, in response to the stress, you start operating from reflex behavior, and your intelligence in the response is now lost from the response. And all of a sudden you see the debilitating effects of stress. Now, it's not bad for an acute thing. I'm running, I fall down, I hurt myself. I can go through an acute little stress response. When does it have damage? I'll give you the simple analogy to make sense of it. Imagine a community, let's go back to the 1950s. Remember those years when we were afraid the Russians were going to drop bombs on us, okay? So what did we do? We built bomb shelters. So the kids don't know about that, but we had bomb shelters. Now here's the issue. There's a community. Here we are in Memphis. Kids are going to school, factories are working, people are doing jobs. The community is in a state of growth, right? Yes or no? Say yeah. Good following of that. Good. Okay, in a state of growth. Now here's the issue. The air raid siren goes off. Where do the people go? To the bomb shelter. What happened to the job? It stops. The community function stops. The cells or the people are not involved with the community. They're out to save their own individual lives. And the point is this. I go down in the bomb shelter and I wait, and 5 minutes later the all clear goes. Then what do? We go out of the bomb shelter, we go back to work, and it was just like that's called an acute response. It's just a momentary event. So there was a short, it's like a coffee break. We took an extra long coffee break, right? Here's where the problem comes. This is where the issue is. We're working on a job. The air raid siren goes off. We run into the bomb shelter, and we wait, and we wait, and we wait. And there's no all clear. What happens then? It's automatic. What happens? Stress, and what happens to your survival? How long can you live in the bomb shelter, or how much food did you store in there? And the bottom is this. What happens when you run out of food? Then what happens? You die. Here's the issue. Your cells are in a community. They work together in a coherent group just like the community of people. The moment the air raid siren goes off in the body saying our survival is under threat, then the cells get into the bomb shelter. The problem is most of our stresses are chronic. They're there all the time. And as long as we maintain a chronic stress, then the more stress we maintain, the more cells in my body stay in the bomb shelter and don't come back out. And the relevance is the cells will die, the tissues will undergo a disorganization, and disease will ensue. And the consequence? The stress. It wasn't the genes, it wasn't the system, it was the belief that went into it. So the bottom line is stress is the ultimate problem that we face if you got here with good genes. And I said 95 out of 100 got here with good genes. And stress does this. It alters the system. The stress signals come in at the cell membrane and activate the protein pathways, which are respiration, digestion, excretion, etc. But here's the issue. If a cell encounters stress, what can it do? I already mentioned a couple of things. Well, I'll tell you what it can do. Number one, it could wall itself off, go into the bomb shelter. And the question is, yeah, I can survive, but not for a long time doing that. So that's a temporary effect. It's the only thing I can do temporarily. Another thing cells can do is that they can secrete things in their environment to try to make their environment happier. But that's a very expensive process, because if I can't change the whole environment, I'm always just wasting energy throwing it out. It's like trying to heat Memphis in the wintertime by opening your window and leaving your heater on, figuring maybe all of Memphis is going to get warm. And the bottom line is, no, that doesn't work either. So the third thing that is possible, now this is real exciting stuff. The third thing that is possible is you can adapt. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means change your genes or change your biology to respond to the stress.
So welcome back. I hope you gained a lot from that, and I hope you gained a lot from these clips so far. So I just invite you to process all this and just measure against how you've lived your life, and maybe you go into passenger mode, like I say. You don't even know this stuff is being influenced on you to actually have an outcome, and you don't understand why you get into stuff, and don't worry about what has happened. Just realize, like I say, mistakes and stuff, it's a mistake to me is like a real-time realization. I had a greater level of perception that I just didn't know I could employ. So then I overlay that data that I gain from that outcome and reassess me, and I improve, and it's relentless improvement, right? So I guess I talk about life force and love state, fear state, mastery, emotional mastery, meditation, and all these sort of things. But I really hope so far that you see that there is more potential in you that you didn't even realize without even understanding this fundamental of how we can be passengers of this amazing tech that we're in, all right? Let alone the influences that kick in, okay? So yeah, things like the parasympathetic and the hacking of that. If you go into an emotional state, how your energy field can open up and be vulnerable and stuff. And then the byproduct is the potentially corruption and pollution of your perception mechanics. And so that limits your ability to navigate. And if your body gets hacked, and then you have to make decisions, you can be a bit paralyzed in them and stuff. So the key is to just appreciate this and realize this, and avoid things like complacency, and just have like a repertoire of things that you can do and stuff to prevent the influence. But as I said at the start, if you get on top of the emotional mastery, then the influences can be a bit more obvious. But I'll just move on, alright? So I'll finish off with this last clip, and I'm not sure if it was in part 3 or 4, but I know it's definitely in this part 4, and what I'm going to do is probably offer some other clips from this awesome lecture of Bruce Lipton, and the key that he says is that beliefs are a big driver, alright? So our beliefs of a perception of a scenario can influence us incredibly relative to what we do to our bodies, alright? And there's other clips I'm probably not going to include, but the perception of our reality influences our genes and our DNA. It's not the hereditary sort of, we're destined for this fate. I hope if you've appreciated the stuff I've done with Carleen, who's profound when it comes to DNA. She's like DNA surgeon and stuff, and she's not the only one I know. It's how malleable our DNA is. So if you're in an emotional state, and then I say about perception mechanics that can be influenced by that emotional state, then that can have an effect on your DNA and stuff, right? This last clip is about an expansion on that, but also our ability to adapt to an environment and stress. So it may have been included in that third clip, but I'm pretty sure it's about this because I've got notes, all right? But yeah, just appreciate that we are how we are, but we have an incredible, vast ability to adapt to any scenario and things like that, alright? And so, see if you actually appreciate all this, and then you're not a passenger to going into the fear state. You just, why am I allowing this to happen? And instead of going into the fear state, you can actually employ the expansion of the awareness and the data, but not be corrupted, but use it in that heightened state, use it in the bottom, the heightened awareness that is the maximum of your potential of any use of your talents in any moment, rather than the corrupt non-discernment, but governed by your fear state, right? Because you're talents are disarmed but heightened. Alright, so what I'm going to do is show you this fourth clip, and I'll probably round it out pretty quick because yeah, it's getting dark, right? So I'll leave you with this clip, and I'll see you on the other side.
Organism, environment. That's the slide we showed, is the environment. Organism's perception. We said perception is belief. And what does it affect? The cells. In what way? By rewriting the genes and changing the structure of the cells. The bottom line is this. Your belief in a stressful situation will rewrite your genes to accommodate the stress. And the relevance about that is that if the stressful environment is something that's not even real out there, you will change your biology to fit what you believe. And the issue is this, then specific organs and specific tissues of the body are connected to the beliefs. There's a great book by Louise Hay called You Can Heal Your Life. There's a glossary in the back, and she's done great research to reveal that specific stresses affect different portions of your body. And as a result, if you understand which portion of your body is affecting the stress, then you can deal with it by understanding what emotions are eliciting that stress. And I'll give you, it's just very critical to understand this, is that the symptoms of your body are your body telling you that you're under stress. That's clear. But the point about it is your body is trying to tell you with a symptom, deal with the stress. Because if you're not dealing with it, we're going to have a problem in here. And here's the interesting point. When we go to conventional medical care, what do they do with the symptom? They cover it up. And so you don't feel anything anymore. You know what the analogy is like? Because this is true. When I was working in graduate school, I was working in a Chevy dealership to make some money. And Friday afternoon, all the guys had cleaned up their tools. The shop is ready. Everybody's closing up. It's almost 5 o'clock. Everybody wants to go home. And this woman came in, and she'd been in a couple of times before. This is her third trip. For what's the issue? She came in because the little light on her dashboard says service engine now keeps going on. And she got very upset by this, and it's like, I brought in 3 times. She started to go through all this stuff. So one mechanic, brave guy, says, I can fix it. So he takes the car to the back to the bay. He gets inside the car. He goes under the dashboard. He pulls out the little light bulb. And then he has a smoke and hangs out. Why? Because obviously it takes a long time to do this work, so you can charge him, And the bottom line is, after about 20, 30 minutes, he brings the car back out front and says, it's fixed. And the woman got in the car, and guess what? She was happier than anything could be. She drove away. The damn light didn't come on again. The problem is this. When we go to rid ourselves of symptoms, we are pulling the light out. The symptom is just the information that something is going wrong. That if you cut off that information about the symptom, you're telling the body, I'm not listening to you. And what's the body going to do? It's going to find another way to bring you some more information, but the next time it's going to be worse news than it was the first time. And the issue is this. Symptoms are telling you that you're not running in a coordinated fashion with your body, and that becomes important.
Welcome back. Very cool. Hey, so what I've sort of done is introduce that the love state is a mode that you can be in. It's not necessarily like being in love with someone, like an infatuation that Anthony de Mello says. So then there's 2 states. It's like you can be in fear, where you're having this cost and your blood and all that is affected, or you can be in love and you're heightened relative to your talents and your perceptions, all right? So as I said at the start, what I was realizing is I was seeing a pretty consistent across the board is depending on what was going on in some people, and we all have the potential to have our perceptions corrupted and polluted by states that we're in. And as I showed you before, I'll show you the image again. I'm inviting you to appreciate the responsibility the emotional state has to the betterment of your energy field, okay? So say if you go into a fear state, you can get into a complacency, and you don't even know your influence and stuff, And I'll just show you this other image that I haven't shown so far. getting a bit dark with me, and I made a spelling error. I was in high frequency state, alright? So what I've realized also is that, say I was talking about getting ambushed and stuff, right? What I was appreciating is a lot of people, and it's not about you guys that I've seen or whatever, it's just an observation and appreciation, is that from my perspective, the vast majority of people don't even know what's running them, right? They're only 25% of their awareness, and there's like 75%, like this bigger box that's all running in them, gubbing them, and it could be influences, could be hacks, could be chips and all this sort of stuff. The people in themselves, they think they're good and they're fine, but say I work with people's bodies and their body consciousness is going like having a massive fit, you know. So I'm like a human lie detector test, you know. The body reveals it all, and people don't like me because I just know they can't hide bullshit like misguidance and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I was finding that this is just a possibility that's going on. So, you know, if things are going on in your life and they don't unfold the way you want, and you're just a passenger to a lot of crap, and it's like you feel good in yourself and that, maybe you're not fully aware of what's going on, right? So yeah, it's getting dark, and this has already been quite long, and I haven't been on doing videos for a while and stuff. So what I'll just say is that in my last video I offered this, and you can't really see it, but I'll have the image next to me, and it's relative to my session structure, right? So I've tightened it up because of all this stuff, right? Because I realised there's all next level layers going on, and a lot of people are booby trapped and all this sort of stuff, right? So this is on my access to me page. It's a bit, if you scroll a bit down, the image is there, and I offered that I've had to evolve my thing, my structure a bit, and be a bit tighter than probably what is best for us all. But yeah, it allows me to be more protected, because I think there's been a next level of stuff, or just coming into more awareness, because these frackers are, now we've got the 12D and they're going to be dirty as, alright? They're going to bring out the big guns, and so someone like me is more going to be targeted than ever, but I don't give a shit. MC Hammer 12D, you can't touch this, encrypted, alright? So I just want to offer this, and I don't think I put it up on my website. I might do it by the time the show's out, but this is an image which you can't see very well with me, but it'll be next to me, is that this is, I charge before I engage, alright, because I get people to engage the value before they see me. So I don't really engage with you unless you are serious about a session, because I can heal via email and pick all the stuff up, and my stuff has gone off the charts, even in this recent integration time, of a lot of stuff that I've gained from the achievement of what I've been a part of, and all the clearing and gifts that Earth Mother has given me and stuff. But I'll say, relative to me and seeking me out as a healer and stuff, right, is that, and this is where the perception mechanics I can expand upon, and it's not just me, it's anyone for a session sort of thing, is that it's probably the most absolute relative to the unknown and uncertainty that you can have. And so there's a potential for a lot of corruption and pollution in that, to seek out someone. As I've said, if you take on board everything I've said in this, relative to like seeking someone out for multi-dimensional healing, like what I do, or other people out there, it's pretty much the most radical thing you can do in this reality at the moment, right? So if I show you the other image, so what I'm just saying is I've worked out the mechanics of things. So I just sit back and I allow you to go through your rite of passage of choosing or not. And unfortunately, this is how I have to be in this present time, just to maintain my protection relative to some of the epic stuff I've been dealing with clients. And I thank all those that have had the courage to come through and been in a position to be able to afford it and stuff, because I do have my mechanics very on point. And so the reason why I share my perspectives about me is I'm inviting you, as if you're a practitioner, to see that as a potential for you, and maybe you need to tighten your thing up as well, right? And if we all appreciate this, then we all evolve and expand at our potential that we have, right? You won't be able to see it too much, and apologies for the dark. I took me a while to get into a state to do this, but this is that mechanics again with the fear and the expanded sort of state. So you imagine, and I talked about the sympathetic resonance, the falsehood, and the feeling is prayer, upside down sort of stuff. So going for a session, the opportunity to be corrupted, say if you've dealt with greedies and stuff in the past that have influenced you to derail you from your potential, then seeking someone out like me, you might actually have shit in you that's preventing you seeking me out that you don't even comprehend, alright? So it's getting dark and I don't want to say too much more, but I'll just invite you, if perhaps it might feel like the worst thing to do to say seek me out, and I would invite you that maybe if you get on top of the emotional mastery and what I say here and listen to the other ones, perhaps your wiring is being fracked with to derail your potential and your navigation is off, alright? Relative to that choice point image that I showed, which I'll just show again now quick. So I showed you this before and you can't really see it because I'm dark, but you'll be able to see the image next to me. So just imagine if you've interacted with negative beings and we've been sort of identifying them, and the potential to actually be hacked is higher that we don't even know about because it's a multi-dimensional hack and stuff. And so I know what's happened to me, and I've talked about this with Carlene in some of the releases. She said about 75% of people were influenced to not seek me out. Okay, so it's not about me gaining money or whatever like that. Just use me as a variable for discernment and see if that's gone on with you, alright? And just think about your choice points and if you've been steered away when you're contemplating it right at the last minute, because it's definitely been going on, alright? So yeah. So I'm using me as a variable in that discernment mechanics because it could be a very visceral reaction, alright, if you've definitely involved yourself with other people in the past. But this is what I said in the recalibration part 5, is that I realized I was being hacked, that had a potential to influence people away from me. And if you've watched all the like influencers sort of releases and stuff, there's all sorts of tech that I've identified, and there's more that this sort of stuff can be going on. So I'm just inviting you to take your discernment mechanics to the next level with emotional mastery in place, and how this sort of thing can get corrupted. So yeah, I hope you've gained a lot from this, and invite you to contemplate whether your emotional state is influencing your perception mechanics, and perhaps you've got corruptions and pollution to it that you didn't know about, but just getting a stronger foundation on your actual physical body, alright, and why you are working the way you are. Maybe it's just enough to give you that trigger to shake some stuff out to get you through some influences, or actually help you realize that you have some going on and you need some help. And yeah, it's dark, and I apologize for that. I've been going a long time, so just rounding it out, and I may expand on this in the future. I may have broken it up into 2 parts, or I'm more than likely to offer all this now, but I just want to thank you for allowing me to be a part of your journey. And if you gain anything from my help, it's a huge honor, and I really hope this helps you strengthen yourself and fortify yourself to navigate what's to unfold, as uncertainty and the unknown is probably going to be amped up massively, and a lot of people around us are going to be very much passengers to it, and we can actually be influenced by them as well. So they're a variable that you might be not knowing that you're actually taking on board because you're not in mastery of yourself. So these are all very important things to recognize. Alright, so I really thank you for being here, and I hope you gain a lot from this. And until next time, guys, I'll see you around. Andre out.
In December, heading for the city lights, 975, sharing each other,
John Lilly once put it this way: there are no limits at all to the human mind whatsoever, except those we impose on ourselves because of our beliefs. And those limits are also beliefs to be transcended. And that's a view that suggests that the possibilities of human transformation are virtually infinite. And we have no way of knowing the outer horizon of what it means to be human.
And really, to understand all this, everything, you have to go very, very deep into a study of history, consciousness, neurophysiology, everything. You have to be the supreme eclectic type of leaning, and you really have to be wanting to know who you are and what everything's about.
And the thing that you'll find when you go to sacred sites, if you're very humble about it, is that you are on a personal journey, and the sacred site will respond to you in a way that is appropriate only to you. The information is always what you are searching for. And it's the intent you give that energy that defines whether it is used for right action or not. And it is inside these sacred spaces that you will be reminded that you are a god, that you are a bright star.
So what you're trying to do is move through the course without ricocheting off walls or creating karma. You're trying to slide through things smoothly. How do you do that? It's called flowing. There's a technique that you can do that will allow you to touch some part of your inner being that has more knowledge than your conscious state does.